4. Walter offers to drive Uncle Jules to town. Through the living room doors, I can see my aunt sitting by the fire, temple propped up on her fingers. The white light from the sky pours into her upturned face. She opens her eyes and, seeing me, forms a soundless word with her lips. I find Kate in the ground level basement rubbing an iron fireplace. Since Christmas, she and Walter have taken to cleaning things, removing 100 years' accumulation of paint from old walls and cupboards to expose the cypress and brick underneath. As if to emphasize her sallowness and thinness, she has changed into shirt and jeans. She is as frail as a 10-year-old, except in her thighs. Sometimes she speaks of her derriere, sticks it out Beale Street style and gives it a slap, and this makes me blush because it is a very good one, marvelously ample and mysterious and nothing to joke about. To my relief, she greets me cheerfully. She clasps one leg, rests her cheek on a knee, and rubs an iron welt with steel wool. She has the advantage of me, sitting at her ease in a litter of summers past, broken wicker, split croquet balls, rotting hammocks. Now she wipes the welt with solvent. It begins to turn pale. Well, aren't you supposed to tell me something? Yes, but I forget what it was. Bings. You're to tell me all sorts of things. That's true. It will end with me telling you. That would be better. How do you make your way in the world? Is that what you call it? I don't really know. Last month I made $3,000, less capital gains. How did you get through a war without getting killed? It was not through any doing of yours. It is an old passage between us, more of a joke now than a quarrel. And how do you appear so reasonable to mother? I feel reasonable with her. She thinks you're one of her kind. What kind is that? A proper balling. Jules thinks you're a go-getter, but you don't fool me. You know. Yes. What kind? You're like me, but worse, much worse. She is intolerable good spirits. It is not necessary to pay too much attention to her. I spy the basket arm of a broken settee. It has a presence about it, the ghost of 20 summers in Feliciana. I perch on a bony spine of wicker and prop hands on knees. I remember what I came for. Will you go to Legiers and watch the parade? Kate stretches out a leg to get at her cigarettes. Her ritual of smoking stands her in good stead. She extracts the wadded pack, kneads the warm cellophane, taps a cigarette violently and accurately against her thumbnail, lights it with a Zippo worn smooth and yellow as a pocket watch. Pushing back her shingled hair, she blows out a plume of gray lung smoke and plucks a grain from her tongue. She reminds me of college girls before the war, how they would sit 5 and 6 in a convertible, seeming old to me and sullen silent toward men and toward their own sex, how they would take refuge in their cigarettes, the stripping of cellophane, the clash of Zippos, the rushing plume of lung smoke expelled up in a long hissing sigh. Her idea? Yes. Kate begins to nod and goes on nodding. You must have had quite a powwow. Not much of one. You've never understood Mother's dynamics. Her dynamics? What do you suppose she and I talk about? What? You. I'm sick of talking about you. Now I do look at her. Her voice has suddenly taken on its objective tone. Since she started her social work, Kate has spells of talking frankly in which she recites case histories in a kind of droning scientific voice. And all the while it was perfectly obvious that the poor woman had never experienced an orgasm. Is such a thing possible? I would cry, and we would shake our heads in the strong sense of our new camaraderie, the camaraderie of a science which is not too objective to pity the follies and ignorance of the world. There is nothing new in her attack against her stepmother, nor do I object, to tell the truth. It seems to serve her well enough, this discovery of the possibilities of hatred. She warms under its influence. It serves to make the basement a friendlier place. Her hatred is a consequence of a swing of her dialectic. She has in the past few months swung back to her father. The basement is to be a TV room for him. In the beginning she had been her father's child. Then, as a young girl, the person of her stepmother, this quick, charming, and above all intelligent woman had appeared at a critical time in her rebellion. Her stepmother became for her the rallying point of all those forces which until then had been hardly felt as more than formless discontents. If she hadn't much use for her father's ways, his dogged good nature, his Catholic unseriousness, his little water closet jokes, his dumbness about his God and the good Lord, the everlasting dumb importuning of her just to be good, to mind the sisters, and to go his way, his dumb way of inner faith and outer good spirits. If she hadn't much use for this, she hardly knew how little until she found herself in the orbit of this enchanting person. Her stepmother had taken her in charge and set her free. In the older woman, older than a mother and yet something of a sister, she found the blithest, gayest fellow rebel and comrade. The world of books and music and arts and ideas opened before her, and if later her stepmother was to take alarm at Kate's political activities, a spiritual rebellion was one thing, the soaring of the spirit beyond the narrow horizons of the parochial and into the lofty regions of literature and life. Nor was there anything wrong with the girlish socialism of Sarah Lawrence, but political conspiracy here and now in New Orleans with the local dirty necks of the bookshops and a certain oracular type of social worker my aunt knew only too well, that was something else. But even so, now that it was in the past, it was not really so bad. In fact, as time went on, it might even take on the flavor of one's studentage. How well I remember, her stepmother told her, the days when the Wagnerians used to hiss and Brahms. Oh, for the rapturous, rebellious days of youth. But now it is she, my aunt herself, who falls prey to Kate's dialectic of hatreds. It was inevitable that Kate should catch up with and see into her stepmother just as she caught up with her father, and that she should, in the same swing of dialectic, rediscover her father as the authentic Louisiana businessman, and if not, go to mass with him, build him a TV room. It was inevitable that she should give up the Philharmonic upstairs and take up the Gillette cavalcade in the basement. It is, as I say, all the same to me which parents she presently likes or dislikes, but I am uneasy over the meagerness of her resources. Where will her dialectic carry her now, after Uncle Jules? What? Not back to her stepmother, I fear, but into some kind of dead end where she must become aware of the dialectic. Hate her then, I feel like telling her, and love Jules, but leave it at that. Don't try another swing. I say, then you're not going to the Legiers. She puts her cigarette on a potsherd and goes back to her rubbing. And you're not going to the ball? I ask. No. Don't you want to see Walter as crew captain? Kate swings around and her eyes go to discs. Don't you dare patronize Walter. I wasn't. Do you think I didn't see the two of you upstaging him at lunch? What a lovely pair you are. I thought you and I were the pair. You and I are not a pair of any sort. I consider this. Good day, says Kate irritably. 5. We talk, my aunt and I, in our old way of talking during pauses in the music. She's playing Chopin. She does not play very well. Her fingernails click against the keys, but she's playing one of our favorite pieces, the E flat etude. In recent years, I have become suspicious of music. When she comes to a phrase which once united us in a special bond and to which once I opened myself as meltingly as a young girl, I harden myself. She asks not about Kate, but about my mother. My aunt does not really like my mother, yet considering the circumstances that my father was a doctor and my mother was his nurse and married him, she likes her as well as she can. She has never said a word against her and in fact goes out of her way to be nice to her. She even says that my father was shot with luck to get such a fine girl, by which she means that my father did, in a sense, leave it to luck. And she really holds against my mother. All she really holds against my mother, and not really against her but against my father, is my father's lack of imagination in marrying her. Sometimes I have the feeling that Sometimes I have the feeling myself that who my mother was and who I am depended on the chance selection of a supervisor of nurses in Biloxi. When my father returned from medical school and his surgical residency in Boston to practice with my grandfather in Feliciana Parish, he applied for a nurse. The next day he waited, and I too waited, to see who would come. The door opened, and in walked the woman who, as it turned out, would, if she were not one-legged or downright ugly, be his wife and my mother. My mother is a Catholic, what is called in my aunt's circle a devout Catholic, which is to say only that she is a practicing Catholic, since I do not think she is devout. This accounts for the fact that I am, nominally at least, also a Catholic. After my father's death, my aunt sent me off to prep school. During my years in college, I lived in her house. After returning to work in a Biloxi hospital, my mother remarried and now lives on the Gulf Coast where her husband is a Western auto dealer. I have 6 half-brothers and sisters named Smith. Sometimes during the summer, I drop in at their fishing camp on Bayou des Allemands with my Marcia or my Linda. Now Aunt Emily, fingernails clicking over the keys, comes back to the tune. The sweet, sad piping of the 19th century, good as it can be, but not good enough. To protect myself, I take one of the photographs from the mantel. "Is she coming?" asks my aunt during the pause. "Kate? No." "Well, no matter." Again I hold the picture to the light. The sky is darkening and a fresh wind has sprung up. "Why didn't you go get into the picture, sweetie?" I ask her. "Weren't you there?" "No, indeed. Do you know what they wanted to do?" "What?" "Go gallivanting off to Hungary to shoot quail." I said, "My God, you can shoot quail in Feliciana Parish." Anyhow, I heard that something queer was going on in München. There was some kind of putsch, and I didn't like the smell of it, so off they went to hunt quail in Hungary, and off I went to my putsch. She watches me replace the picture. We'll not see there like again. The age of the Catos is gone. Only my Jules is left, and Sam Yerger. Won't it be good to see Sam again? This is absurd, of course. Uncle Jules is no Cato, and as for Sam Yerger, Sam is only a Cato on long Sunday afternoons and in the company of my aunt. She transfigures everyone. Mercer she still sees as the old retainer. Uncle Jules she sees as the Creole Cato, the last of the heroes, whereas the truth is that Uncle Jules is a canny Cajun straight from Bayou La Fourche, as canny as a Marseille merchant and a very good fellow, but no Cato. All the stray bits and pieces of the past, all that is feckless and grey about people she pulls together into an unmistakable visage of the heroic or the craven, the noble or the ignoble. So strong is she that sometimes the person and the past are in fact transfigured by her. They become what she sees them to be, Uncle Jules has come to see himself as the Creole member of the gens, the Bogart among the Lees. Mercer is on occasions not distinguishable from an old retainer. Truthfully, I do not know, and Mercer does not know, what Mercer really is. The storm, which has been brewing since noon, now breaks over our heads. Thunder rattles the panes. We walk out on the gallery to watch it. A rushing gulf wind slashes the banana leaves into ribbons and blows dead camellia blooms across the yard. Veils of rain, parted for a second by the house, rush back together again. Trash from the camphor trees rattles on the roof. We stroll arm in arm up and down the Lee Gallery like ship passengers on a promenade. After Germany, I insisted on going back to England. I wanted to see the lake country again. Did father go? Jack? Heavens no. He met two of his buddies from Charlottesville and Princeton, and they took off helter-skelter up the Rhine. Off he went with a bottle of Liebfraumilch under one arm and Willem Miser under the other. But they do not fit, I think, of the 100th time. Your student prince and the ironic young dude on the mantel. Jack, she says in a different voice, and immediately the Black Forest is 2,000 miles away and 40 years ago. Yes, ma'am. My neck begins to prickle with a dreadful but not unpleasant eschatological prickling. We take up our promenade. My aunt steps carefully, lining up her toe with the edge of the boards. She presses a finger against her lip, but it is not possible to tell whether she is smiling or grimacing. I had a brainstorm last night. It still looked reasonably good this morning. How does this strike you? What? My neck prickles like a bull terrier. Last week at Great Books I had a chat with old Dr. Miner. I didn't bring up your name. He did. He asked me what you were doing with yourself. When I told him, he said it was a shame because, and there was no reason for him to say that if it weren't true, you have a keen mind and a natural scientific curiosity. I know what she is going to say. My aunt is convinced I have a flair for research. This is not true. If I had a flair for research, I would be doing research. Actually, I'm not very smart. My grades were average. My mother and my aunt think I am smart because I am quiet and absent-minded, and because my father and grandfather were smart. They think I was meant to do research because I am not fit to do anything else. I am a genius whom ordinary professions can't satisfy. I tried research one summer. I got interested in the role of the acid-base balance in the formation of renal calculi. Really, it's quite an interesting problem. I had a hunch you might get pigs to form oxalate stones by manipulating the pH of the blood, and maybe even to dissolve them. A friend of mine, a boy from Pittsburgh named Harry Stern, and I read up the literature and presented the problem to Miner. He was enthusiastic, gave us everything we wanted, and turned us loose for the summer. But then a peculiar thing happened. I became extraordinarily affected by the summer afternoons in the laboratory. The August sunlight came streaming in the great dusty fanlights and lay in yellow bars across the room. The old building ticked and creaked in the heat. Outside we could hear the cries of summer students playing touch football. In the course of an afternoon, the yellow sunlight moved across old group pictures of the biology faculty. I became bewitched by the presence of the building. For minutes at a stretch, I sat on the floor and watched the motes rise and fall in the sunlight. I called Harry's attention to the presence, but he shrugged and went on with his work. He was absolutely unaffected by the singularities of time and place. His abode was no anywhere. It was all the same to him whether he catheterized a pig at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in It was all the same to him whether he catheterized a pig at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in New Orleans or at midnight in Transylvania. He was actually like one of those scientists in the movies who don't care about anything but the problem in their heads. Now here is a fellow who does have a flair for research and will be heard from. Yet I do not envy him. I would not change places with him if he discovered the cause and cure of cancer, for he is no more aware of the mystery which surrounds him than a fish is aware of the water it swims in. He could do research for 1,000 years and never have an inkling of it. By the middle of August, I could not see what difference it made whether the pigs got kidney stones or not. They didn't, incidentally. Compared to the mystery of those summer afternoons, I asked Harry if he would excuse me. He was glad enough to, since I was not much used to him sitting on the floor. I moved down to the quarter where I spent the rest of the vacation in quest of the spirit of summer and in the company of an attractive and confused girl from Bennington who fancied herself a poet. But I am mistaken. My aunt is not suggesting that I go into research. I want you to think about entering medical school this fall. You know you've always had it in the back of your mind. Now I've fixed up your old garçonniere in the carriage house. Wait till you see it. I've added a kitchenette and some bookshelves. You will have absolute privacy. We won't even allow you in the house. No, it is not I doing something for you. We could use you around. Kate is going through something. I don't understand. Jules, my dear Jules, won't even admit anything is wrong. You and Sam are the only ones she'd ever listen to. We come to the corner of the gallery and a warm spray blows in our faces. One can smell the islands to the south. The rain slackens and tires hiss on the wet asphalt. Here's what we'll do. As soon as hot weather comes, we'll go up to Flat Rock, the whole family, Walter included. He's already promised. We'll have a nice long summer in the mountains and come back here in September and buckle down to work. 2 cars come racing abreast down Britannia. Someone shouts an obscenity in a wretched croaking voice. Our footsteps echo like pistol shots in the basement below. I don't know. You think about it. Yes, ma'am. She does not smile. Instead, she stops me, holds me off. What is it you want out of life, son? She asks with a sweetness that makes me uneasy. I don't know, but I'll move in whenever you want me. Don't you feel obliged to use your brain and to make a contribution? No. She waits for me to say more. When I do not, she seems to forget about her idea. Far from holding my refusal against me, she links her arm in mine and resumes the promenade. I no longer pretend to understand the world. She is shaking her head, yet still smiling her sweet, menacing smile. The world I knew has come crashing down around my ears. The things we hold dear are reviled and spat upon. She nods toward Britannia Street. It's an interesting age you will live in, though I can't say I'm sorry to miss it. But it should be quite a sight, the going under of the evening land. That's us, all right, and I can tell you, my young friend, it is evening. It is very late. For her, too, the fabric is dissolving, but for her, even the dissolving makes sense. She understands the chaos to come. It seems so plain when I see it through her eyes. My duty in life is simple. I go to medical school. I live a long, useful life serving my fellow men. What's wrong with this? All I have to do is remember it. You have too good a mind to throw away. I don't quite know what we're doing on in this insignificant cinder spinning away in a dark corner of the universe. That is a secret which the high gods have not confided in me. Yet one thing I believe, and I believe it with every fiber of my being. A man must live by his light and do what little he can, and do it as best he can. In this world, goodness is destined to be defeated, but a man must go down fighting. That is victory. To do anything less is to be less than a man. She is right. I will say yes. I will say yes even though I do not really know what she's talking about. But I hear myself saying, as a matter of fact, I was planning to leave gently soon, but for a different reason. There's something. I stop. My idea of search seems absurd. To my surprise, this lame reply is welcomed by my aunt. Of course, she cries. You're doing something every man used to do. When your father finished college, he had his Wanderier, a fine year's ramble up the Rhine and down the Loire, with a pretty girl on one arm and a good comrade on the other. What happened to you when you finished college? War. And I'm so proud of you for that. But that's enough to take it out of any man. Wanderier. My heart sinks. We do not understand each other after all. If I thought I'd spent the last 4 years as a Wanderier before settling down, I'd shoot myself on the spot. How do you mean take it out of me? Your scientific calling, your love of books and music. Don't you remember how we used to talk on the long winter evenings when Jules would go back to bed and Kate would go dancing? How we used to talk? We tired the sun with talking and sent him down the sky. Don't you remember discovering Euripides and Jean Christophe? You discovered them for me. It was always through you that. All at once I am sleepy. It requires an effort to put one foot in front of the other. Fortunately, my aunt decides to sit down. I wipe off an iron bench with my handkerchief and we sit, still arm in arm. She gives me a pat. Now, I want you to make me a promise. Yes, ma'am. Your birthday is 1 week from today. Is that right? You will be 30 years old. Don't you think a 30-year-old man ought to know what he wants to do with his life? Yes. Will you tell me? Then? Yes, next Wednesday afternoon after Sam leaves. I'll meet you here at this spot. Will you promise to come? Yes, ma'am. She expects a great deal from Sam's visit. Pushing up my sleeve to see my watch, she sucks in her breath. Back to the halt and the lame and the generally no count. Sweetie, lie down first and let me rub your neck. I can tell from her eyes when she has a headache. Later, when Mercer brings the car around to the front steps, she lays a warm, dry cheek against mine. You're such a comfort to me. You remind me so much of your father. I can't seem to remember him. He was the sweetest old thing, so gay, and did the girls fall over him? And a mind. He had a mind like a steel trap and an analytical mind like yours. She always says this, though I have never analyzed anything. He had the pick of New Orleans. And picked Anna Castaigne. Mercer, who has changed to a cord coat and cap, holds the door grudgingly and cranes up and down the street as much as to say that he may be a chauffeur but not a footman. She has climbed into the car, but she does not release my hand. He would have been much happier in research, she says, and lets me go.